Yo, what is going on with Trunk and all of this Solend borrow lending mumbo jumbo?
Well, it's a pretty big deal landing in the number 2 spot after 2 weeks on the Solend pools. So, let's get into it.
Yo, appreciate your time and just know that I'm SK CryptoK, and today you should join my crypto club. Maybe by the end earn some dividends, so in advance I'ma thank you right now for that sub. Hey! Yo, let's go.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is SK CryptoK, and before we get started, allow me to preface everything by saying that I am not a financial advisor and these are for informational and entertainment purposes only.
Yeah, dog, I'm just a dude on the internet.
So, welcome back. In this video, we're going to review some of the strategies that you can do on Solend, as this is just the latest and greatest tool in the war chest at Elephant Money. And when I zoom out and look at Solend's global overview, you can see that they have their main pool here in number 1 with $324 million in TVL. But second to that is the Trunk USDC lending pool. And this is just insane, having a total supply of 16.7 million, with BT's confidence at an all-time high that we will actually break through the number 1 spot. And more into that later. So what Solend is a place where you can supply your assets and borrow against them, and is a strategy that most whales take advantage of so they don't actually sell their assets. So for example, if you hold a number of Trunk tokens and you don't necessarily want to sell those tokens, you can click on Trunk, and under the supply side, you can add your Trunk into the Solend pool. And if, for example, it's $100,000, you can borrow up to 75% of a loan to value ratio, or $75,000. However, that is not recommended because this is pretty advanced. There are liquidation thresholds and you do not want to supply all your Trunk as collateral and then get wiped out if the Trunk price changes. But we'll talk more about that in a second. The main play right now is that this USDC is the highest APR that you can get in crypto, period, in all of DeFi. And I put out a tweet earlier calling out that this is the second largest lending pool on Solend protocol, and over the last 7 days, supplying USDC has been averaging 126%. And that is a single staking pool that is not paired with anything. There is no impermanent loss. That is just a ratio of how many people have supplied USDC versus borrowing against that same USDC pool. And what I mean by the USDC pool supply, you can see that $3.9 million has been added to this, but borrowed against that amount is $3.4 million. And because the range between these two is so tight, the supply APR is high, but so too is the borrow APR.
Hot damn, 205% just to borrow some USDC? Yeah, no thanks.
Well, it ultimately depends on your risk tolerance, but if you're as bullish on Trunk as I am, it may be worth considering.
Nah, man, you out your damn mind.
So taking a look at all 4 Trunk pairs that exist, 2 of which are on BSC and the other 2 on Solana, you'll see that the volume's been pretty high, especially on the BUSD side. Nearly 2 million there, 100,000, 400,000, 820,000 on Solana. This is a very healthy chart, a lot of which is propelled by this Solend tool that we're talking about. And we all know the mission, folks, as we drain the Trunk LPs and pull those tokens out of circulation, this price is going to go up. Forget what you remember about Trunk. It is now fixed supply, deflationary, fully renounced, and is only just getting started. Now, with so many use cases for Trunk being paired with Savannah token, you can stake it in Trumpet, you can use it in the Solend pools. There is much that you can do with this as you hodl and wait for the price to barrel past several dollars. But more importantly, it's the market cap that BT is chasing. So on the main pool, Trunk BUSD, it's at 88 million market cap. But this is a multi-billion-dollar protocol in the making, and is what all of these years of hard work is deserving of this protocol. And much like we saw in the month of May, speaking of futures for a second, there were hedge funds that came in and put in over $3 million into futures alone. And that's just the beginning, because there are others on deck that you'll see. Just pay attention over the next several months, and each one teach one, get all your loved ones in that you care about, because you don't want to be on the other end of that conversation of,
oh, why didn't you tell me about this opportunity, man?
so yeah, don't be that guy. Remember too with futures that 20% of the inflow is buying trunk token on the chart and storing it in the turbine, okay? Currently valued at about $6 million. And as trunk goes parabolic, the 1% APR that comes out of this will be buying trunk directly for Bertha. So if there's any herd members who can't hang on to the elephant token, that's okay. Bertha's gonna gobble up all of that cheap elephant and do her multiplicative dance moves as she takes in all of that dollar value at a 2x multiplier still today. Now, currently she sits at about 103 trillion tokens. But if you can imagine multiple millions hitting this, let's just say, for example, $18 million comes into the ecosystem that buys up all of that cheap elephant and propels Bertha from 103 trillion upwards of 200 trillion, which, I mean, this is completely fudged, okay? I mean, there's a lot of other things that play here with the elephant pooled and the BNB pair and how much BNB is in there, yada, yada. Bailey would have to hook us up with something there. But the point is, people crying about 103 trillion tokens ain't ready for what's coming. And it's going to be fun as that money multiplier factor goes up. Now, Solend, right? This is what we're all here to talk about. What is Solend? What can I do? And there are three main strategies that have been talked about in the community. And I'll go through them in this order, which in my opinion is the best order dependent on what you're looking to do. Now, there is no best strategy per se, but these are tools at your disposal to do whatever's in your risk tolerance. So the first strategy would be you can take some USDC that you have or profits that you're taking from elsewhere, and you can supply that USDC onto Solend and borrow USDC against it. So for example, if you come over here, you can hit USDC and then supply whatever amount of USDC you have to get the current APR of 143%. Now this wildly fluctuates. So you are able to hit a little drop down and change it through. I think this pool's only about 2 weeks old, so you're not going to get much good data. However, in the last 24 hours, it's averaged about 135 APR. Now, what's cool about this is that there are no lockup periods. So when you put your funds in here, you're technically liquid, assuming that all of the supply has also not been borrowed out. Okay, so if you put in 1 million here, but there's not a million left that's been relinquished from the borrowers, you're not going to be able to get out your full million. However, these ratios dance all the time. People will end up getting liquidated. People will pay down their loans, so their USDC they borrowed will go back into supply. But this is what I call Solend futures, because it's still highly liquid in comparison to futures, which is locked up. And the other benefit to this is that your rewards are constantly growing and compounding in on themselves too. So I'll just run through, and let's say that I supplied 5,000 USDC. So boom, now it's supplied. My UI over on the right side has changed a little bit. I can see that my asset supplied is 5,000 USDC. And what I mean by it compounds on itself is if I come back and check this periodically, I should see that my USDC amount is going to increase automatically. There is no $200 that I have to put in to compound on a frequent basis. This just does it automated. But if I did this and I wanted to buy some exposure to trunk token, understanding what's coming, understanding that we're going to barrel past $1, I may want to borrow against my 5,000 USDC. And just as I said here, I'm probably going to take out about a 20 to 30% loan to value ratio by borrowing that USDC, at which point I will then buy trunk token with it, supply trunk token back into Solend, so it strengthens my 20 to 30% loan to value ratio, and then I just wait for the bull, however, whatever trunk's going to be doing over the next 12 months, and I will sell a fraction of that trunk token to pay off that loan, okay? And ultimately the goal is to have the debt paid off, yet still hold trunk token for the moon mission, right? So I can come in here under USDC where I've already supplied my 5,000. it says that my user borrow limit is 75% of that, which is $37.50. But I'm just going to start playing with some numbers here. Let's say I wanted to borrow out wrong tab. Borrow tab, $1,000 takes my utilization or my loan to value ratio from 0 up to 26.6. Maybe I just want to increase that a little bit higher to where, yes, if I take out 1,200, it puts me around 32% utilization. And then I can go through and borrow that USDC. It shows everything in my wallet here. So here's still my assets supplied, my assets borrowed, which my borrow rate is on a 203%. But then quickly, I'm going to just jump over here and type in trunk on Jupiter, which is on the strict list. So I can just go ahead and know that I'm getting the correct one. I'll hit max, which is going to give me 1,400 trunk, and I'm going to swap it. Now, coming back to the Solend page, I can see it recognizes my wallet balance of trunk. So I can just come into trunk right here. And when I go to supply it, right, you're going to see something with the utilization. Remember how I said I had 32% that I was up to, but by supplying this trunk back in, it drops my utilization back down to 26%. Now, why is this important? You want to keep the LTV low because if this percentage hit 80%, it will liquidate my position entirely. So my $5,000 that I originally supplied will be given to Solend, and then I would keep the trunk token that I borrowed out. That's pretty much it. I mean, there might be some more stuff that happens at the liquidation. I don't know. You might end up with more, but that's essentially what you want to avoid, okay?
So why would I want to supply for 141% APR when I'm losing out by borrow percentage of 203% APR? I'm still net negative.
Yes, that is a really good question, but it's important to remember the ratios. So overall, you're earning 141% on your total supplied bag of $5,000, but the amount I borrowed wasn't $5,000. I'm not paying 203% on $5,000. I'm paying that on $1,200. So overall, you end up being in a wash situation or in more of a neutral state, right? Because my supply position is going to grow from its earnings, and so too is my debt, somewhat in an equal fashion. But the wild card is the trunk that I'm holding as I bank on that price appreciation of trunk hitting $2, $3, $10, to which I can then just shave off some of those profits, pay off whatever the loan amount is, and still be holding a huge bag of trunk. Does that make sense?
I gotta chew on that a little bit, but interesting. Very, very interesting.
Yes. And that's pretty much strategy number one. And that's if you even want to expose yourself to getting the trunk token. You don't have to borrow anything. I could just supply my 5,000 USDC and just grow in an auto compounding fashion off of the APR. So it's really neat in that regard. And why I'm coining the term Solend futures. So it can supplement what you got going on in the BSC futures too.
Yeah, very interesting. Okay.
And then, yeah, that's the only strategy I'll demonstrate right there. But a lot of people are doing strategy number 2. And this may be where you have a load of trunk from all these years, at which point you can just supply that trunk into Solend, borrow USDC against it at a conservative, 20 to 30% ratio, buy trunk with that USDC, and then supply that trunk or loop it back in, and then do the same strategy to where you just wait for your favorite number of X's, shave off profits, pay off the loan, and now you keep all of your original supplied trunk in addition to the majority of the new trunk you should have been able to hold on to after you paid off the loan. So ultimately, you're holding more trunk than you ever started with. That is the goal, and that is what many people are doing. You really want to baby that LTV ratio though. You don't want it to get too high, especially in the 50 to 60% range. This is not something you want to degen into because we know there are some crazy price fluctuations that happen here. So just be aware of that. And then lastly, strategy number 3, some people are doing this. I wouldn't really recommend it because it's way too long-term. But you could take your current bag of trunk that you've had for a while, you can supply it, you can borrow out a huge amount of trunk against it at 60 to 70% loan to value ratio, for example, because on Solend, the borrow APR for Trunk is really small. And this is going to be way less dynamic than the USDC pool, but this should be able to float pretty easily for a while because all of that added Trunk, you can then stake it into Trumpet for the long term. And then over time, you can remove those rewards because Trumpet multiplies your Trunk count. Remember that. And then pay off the loan with that. Currently, if you look at Dune, Trumpet's only paying about 19% APR over the last 90 days. And this is primarily due to Bertha's low token count. She's not buying and burning as much Trunk as she used to. But as participation and funds ramp up into futures, Bertha's going to get to a healthier position than I think we've seen her in years. And this APR will bump up throughout the bull, but still a little too slow for my liking. And another important thing to keep in mind is if you borrow out Trunk, regardless of the Trunk price, you owe that Trunk count back when you repay the loan. You're not paying back a dollar amount like you are with USDC. You're paying back a Trunk number amount of tokens. Okay, so if you borrow out 1 million tokens, you're on the hook for 1 million tokens, even if Trunk goes up to $30. Does that make sense?
Holy crap. Yeah, that'd be like $30 million I owe.
Right, which is why you want to focus on the token count. And that is what Trumpet is good for. It multiplies your token count for this strategy number 3. So very important thing to keep in mind there. And remember with Trumpet 2, there's a 10% round trip. So you're automatically losing 5% of your Trunk count on the way in and 5% on the way out. Okay.
Cool. Thanks for reviewing all of that. Which strategies are you doing, SK?
So I fall in the bucket of strategy number 2 because of all the Trunk that I've held for years. But I'm going to be adding a strategy number 1 to it. And it's pretty cool on Solend because under the same wallet, you can actually set up different accounts. Okay. So in this one, it shows that I supplied my 5,000. But if I wanted to create a new account under the same wallet, same LTV, borrowing, all that stuff, right? But I just want to keep things segregated, I can come in here with a different strategy. Maybe I'm supplying my Trunk and borrowing USDC and doing all of that strategy. But it's a really cool way to keep up with different things so you're not commingling strategies and you kind of lose focus. So for me, I'm primarily in strategy number 2 because I believe in the future of Elephant Money's Trunk token during this bull. This is the tip of the spear. The lending borrowing is going to bring in so many new eyeballs because we're already the number 2 pool. And just as I said in the tweet, people are looking for the best USDC yield in all of crypto. And bar none, we have that. Only we have that. And so while I'm waiting for Trunk to go up in price so I can pay down that loan with that strategy number 2 that I'm doing, I'm going to be taking profits from other protocols and concentrated liquidity, anything else that I'm touching out there in DeFi. Those profits are going to be coming into my strategy number 1, where I will be supplying that as USDC and earning off of that. Some variation of strategy number 1. I may loop it out, borrow some USDC against it, buy some Trunk with it. But ultimately, I want to grow a very healthy supply of USDC positioning on that lending pool to take advantage of that really high APR. So that is my strategy. So that's pretty much it. If you have a strategy that works for you that I haven't yet touched upon, feel free to leave it in the comment section below or find me on Telegram and tell me about it. But otherwise, that is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, then please smash that like button and hit that subscribe button as well as the notification bell. And if you vibe with me and want to join my Telegram community, then find the link below. But as always, folks, until next time, please stay safe out there, stay blessed, and make good choices with your crypto.
Interesting stuff. Yeah, I think I might do strategy 3. Maybe that's for me. I'm gonna take my Trunk, I'm gonna supply it, I'm gonna borrow more Trunk and loop-de-loo it right back through.
Hey, whatever works for you. Peace out.